From Russell Crowe's terrible singing skills in Les Mis to Jared Leto playing the worst possible version of Joker on screen, here are all the actors who were mocked for their roles, starting with Russell Crowe's massive failure in Les Mis. Now, don't get me wrong, this man is an Oscar winner and has starred in great movies like Gladiator and A Beautiful Mind. But when it comes to his performance in this adaptation, things just didn't work out. A lot of his diehard fans were disappointed. Because let's face it, Crowe can't sing at all. In the movie, he plays the role of Inspector Javert, a character with a powerful presence and interesting personality. Sure, his acting could have done justice to it, but his singing just didn't measure up. For Hollywood gossip's Hilton Hader, Crowe's performance was severely lacking, as he failed to deliver on the character's 2 solos, especially the final one, leading up to Javert's dramatic death, which was a shame. Instead of letting fans get their feels into the drama, the movie cut the song short, which made their casting mistake entirely clear. Crowe just couldn't fit into his character, but there's more to it. Critics were harsh with their opinions about the actor's role, but writer and journalist Celeste Headley took it to a whole new level. She described it as laughable and horrendous, which was just brutal. In her blog post, she recounted the cast's stirring performance of One Day More at the Oscars, and it moved her to the core. But that was only until Crowe entered the stage and simply trashed it. For her, it was like a foghorn had started blowing in the middle of a Sousa march, and most fans couldn't disagree. But nothing got under their skin like the next actor's role in a widely hated film. Nicolas Cage was unbearable in The Wicker Man, and you'll find countless compilations of his terrible acting scenes in the film on YouTube, which says enough. His acting in the 2006 horror flick was cringeworthy, and while Cage once said that there's a brilliant mind at work in the film, in all honesty, he was giving himself too much credit. In the movie, he plays a police officer who gets lured to a Scottish island, and there, he discovers a population of matriarchal neo-pagans. But instead of portraying the character with depth, the actor just comes across as awkward and wooden. The way Cage delivers lines in the movie is absolutely horrendous, and most of his dialogues have become a laughingstock for his fan base. He throws the word wackos around like a baseball, and in one scene, he has to deliver the line, "How did it get burned?"
How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned?
I don't know!
Which had none of the subtlety it was intended to have. But if you think that's bad, wait until I tell you about the unforgettable bee scene where Cage's character gets his head stuck in a basket of bees. His over-the-top reaction is straight out of a cheesy movie. And it's no wonder that the scene didn't even make it into the theatrical cut. I mean, fans were embarrassed for the guy, but I bet the embarrassment was nothing compared to the next role I'm about to dive into. Halle Berry's Catwoman role was an epic disaster. In fact, this movie was so bad that it's become one of the most infamous flops in cinema history. Sure, Berry made a fortune from the film, but let's be real, the only fun you'll get out of Catwoman is reading the reviews that tore it apart. Now, Halle Berry can make anyone's heart skip a beat, but even she couldn't save this movie. And according to AV Club's Keith Phillips, the film entirely failed to make her character sexy. Ouch. He said that the film was extremely gaudy, and its PG-13 perception of kink really got in the way. The only thing that Catwoman had going for it was posing Berry in increasingly skimpy outfits, but even that wasn't enough to make the movie watchable, especially since the fight scenes looked like fashion shoots. As if that wasn't bad enough, Berry won a Golden Raspberry Award, but not the good kind. She won the Worst Actor award thanks to her lead performance, which explains how bad her character's development was. Being the queen that she is, Berry took it all in stride and went up to pick up the award in person, admitting to the fact that the character was a brand new low for her. She was even down to direct the film if it was done all over again, so that she could right all of its wrongs. But some wrongs are too far gone. And you'll realize that in the next ridiculous role I'm gonna talk about. Dirty Grandpa was Robert De Niro's worst role to date, and nobody can dispute that. Starring none other than De Niro and Zac Efron. This film was a massive cinematic failure, and scenes featuring De Niro spraying sunscreen on Aubrey Plaza's chest are more than enough to come to that conclusion. I mean, the actor was seen yelling out, "Party till you're pregnant!" And for fans who've watched his iconic performances in The Irishman or Taxi Driver, what could be worse than this? As expected, the reviews were not pretty. and the film was dubbed everything from unfunny, crass, tedious, to just a giant pain to get through. Many have gone as far as to say that this film marked the lowest point of De Niro's illustrious career, and it makes sense. Dirty Grandpa's entire comedic strategy is based on turning profanity and bigotry into cheap laughs, with other characters on screen calling it out as offensive, which is somehow supposed to justify how inappropriate it is. I mean, watching old men call Efron's character a lesbian over and over again wasn't funny at all. But you have to give credit where it's due, as De Niro and Efron were just doing their jobs. They had to get through every disgusting line and foolish set piece thrown at them, and they did what they were required to do. The problem was that the screenplay, penned by John Phillips, was full of vulgarity, and most of the jokes were just awfully failed attempts at humor. So, if you're not amused by De Niro spewing out curse words, or him reciting the entire Wu-Tang Clan member list from memory, you'll know why this role is so despised by the actor's fan base. While De Niro was an established name when he took on this role, the next actor on the list almost lost her career because of one bad film. Yes, Natalie Portman was simply terrible in Star Wars: Attack of the Clones. Now she was decent in The Phantom Menace, because she had some Japanese-inspired thing going on with the Queen Amidala character, but let's be real, things went downhill fast from there. Her role in Attack of the Clones was just wooden and emotionless, and she had close to no chemistry with Anakin, who was supposed to be totally smitten with her. There was practically no spark between the two, and it had a lot less to do with Anakin, considering how that guy made his moves whenever he could, to the point where he looked like a crazy person. But Amidala showed no signs of affection. This would have worked out if the plot had required her to be steely, but she practically killed the main couple's romance, leaving everybody unsatisfied. Let's compare her to Carrie Fisher as Leia, who was a dynamic character without even saying a word, and you just knew that there was something special about her. But you really couldn't say the same about Padme. She had an entire speech prepared for Anakin about how she truly, deeply loved him. It caught the audience off guard, and not in a good way. Viewers had seen zero indication of her love for him up until that point, and her laughing in the field was the only proof of the fact that she liked Anakin's presence. Sure, there was a kiss, but it was totally forgettable. The flop wasn't even about bad dialogue, because apart from lacking any real depth, she had almost no screen presence, and her performance came out as flat and unexciting. But while she's managed to save her career in her later films, the next actor got entirely redefined by one bad role, and it's none other than Jared Leto's insufferable version of Joker in Suicide Squad. According to critics, this is his worst role to date, as many felt that Leto's interpretation of the iconic DC supervillain was underwhelming, with little to no depth in his portrayal. His Joker lacked any real sense of menace or danger, and throughout the film, he came across more like a bad boyfriend than a scary foe for Batman. Critics like Angie Han at Slash Film argued that Leto's performance paled in comparison to other actors who had played the Joker, referring to the likes of Heath Ledger and Jack Nicholson. In fact, even Viola Davis's character Amanda Waller was scarier than Leto's Joker. Sure, some critics acknowledged that Leto got stuck with a poor script, and the bad directorial choices coupled with studio interference did him no good. But let's not forget his attempt at method acting, as he sent used condoms and rats to his co-stars, which was just entirely over the top. It didn't make his character more complex. Instead, his co-stars were just creeped out. It seems he tried his best, but the role left a permanent stain on the actor's reputation. So there you have it, from Jared Leto's Joker failing to scare the audience even a little, to Russell Crowe being called out for sucking at singing his part right, these were the actors who were mocked for their roles.